All right. Well, welcome everybody to another coaching call. And I'll be taking over this one for today and really excited to share something that the entire team has been working behind the scenes for almost over a year now. And this is more specifically to what we've been doing with Diamond Academy and Consulting, which is something that we've kind of been keeping behind the scenes, but with the results that we've been seeing and really with the solution that we have, we really just wanted to share our biggest findings. And if you guys want our help in the future, we're more than happy to do so. But really the goal for this call is to try to have you take away some really important golden nuggets. And let's jump into it. So really what I wanted to go over is how we could, how all of you guys could start increasing revenue and profits and really setting the tone for next year without having to, spend more time in your med spa, without having to spend an extra dollar on marketing, and also without having to under and overpay your team. And with the system that we're about to share with you, like this has so many different types of benefits, such as being able to help you attract and retain top talent, really helps with minimizing patient turnover. And whether times are easy or times are tough, I promise you this system will really help you grow during any time and really during any economic state that we're in. So really excited to share this with you. Now, as you guys probably know, probably don't know, my name is Matthew Agostino. I haven't really given much information regarding my background. I've just been more behind the scenes and handling operations at Diamond. But for those that don't know, I'm an accountant by trade. I'm also a CPA. Used to work at one of the biggest financial consulting firms in the world called Deloitte. I was also part of the founding team at High Level. Everybody that's part of Diamond Accelerator, you guys are all using that software. So I was responsible for launching that software to over 400 plus practices throughout that time. And, all the way up to now, I've been responsible to helping practices generate over, close to over $40 million in revenue over the last 4 years. And as you guys know, really Diamond Accelerator has been like the core focus. What we do there is all about helping practices grow through a marketing system. And Diamond Academy and Consulting, we've really spent a lot of time over the past couple of years diving deeper into the back end of practices and not just focusing on like the marketing and sales, but going deeper into their numbers, their operations. And that is really going to be the center around what we're going to be focusing on. This call is more of like the operational side of running a practice. And really what I want to do is I want to share with you like the findings or essentially my biggest takeaways, not only after working with like really large practices as a chartered professional accountant, but also after helping a ton of med spas over the last couple of years, generate a ton of front-end revenue, back-end revenue, and really just want to share my findings, after really going deep into the back end of a lot of different practices, not only looking at their marketing and sales machine, but also their financials, their operations, and talking to so many different types and sizes of practices, whether there were people starting off, medium-sized practices, people making a couple $1 million a year, and all the way up to 5 to 10 million. And I really wanted to just share with you like one of the most common, or I want to say common things, but the one thing that really stood out between a lot of the larger practices. And if you guys were on, I don't believe it was like our last call, but like 2-3 calls ago, we had Mayte from Nowak Aesthetics. And if you guys paid attention to what she was saying, like she did share pretty much the golden nugget that I'm about to really share with you. And it's something that's going to be really basic. And unfortunately, it's not something that's super sexy and fun to do, but it's absolutely necessary if you're planning to grow and scale your practice to at least 5 million beyond. So ultimately, what is that? It's really just understanding your numbers. And we've had Monty join some of our calls to share with you the importance of having good financial records. But one thing that's really important to understand is yes, the finances are an important part of the business, but there are a lot of operational metrics, whether they're quantitative, whether they're qualitative, that also need to be considered. And this is really my goal out of this presentation, and really the goal out of something special that we have to share with you towards the end of the call is really, with the times that we're in, obviously it's not the easiest. We know that emotions are high, and really the goal behind what we're going to share with you is like how we could help you start removing the emotions out of your decision-making process and really use cold hard facts, really use a data-driven decision-making process to make the decisions not only for the next couple of months, but also for next year for your practice. So I'm going to keep this training very sweet and short. I have a tendency of dragging on these topics because I love them so much. I just want to give you a really, really simple framework that you could go right away and implement in your practice. And it's really based off of 3 timeframes. So one thing that I've learned is to be a really, really good operator, to be a good manager, to really be a good CEO, you need to have a good grip on what's happened in the past, past trends. And obviously in the space that we're in, we know what happens during the summer, we know what happens during holiday seasons. So really having a good understanding on all the past activity and using that to set targets and goals, for your company, for your team, for all the different departments. And also having a system that you could track all of the present activity that's happening on a day-to-day basis. Because you can't forget, if you're setting yearly goals, there's going to be quarterly goals tied to that. If you're setting quarterly goals, there are going to be monthly goals tied to that. And then you have your weekly goals. And then, of course, if you go even more granular, that's where you focus on the day-to-day. And what I've seen is the practices that have a really, really good grip on what's happening every single day in their practice. This is activity from all the different team members, the results for their company as a whole. Those are the ones that are able to make decisions a lot quicker. And again, they're able to remove all emotion out of the decision-making process, which I can guarantee you is a humongous factor as to why they've been so successful. And again, if you haven't watched that training, go watch the interview that Caitlin did with Mayte. A lot of golden nuggets in there, but without a doubt, and I had a chance to see Mayte's back end. I've had a chance to see a lot of other practices back end, and those are in that $5 to $10 million range. You'd be very, very overwhelmed. And this is coming from an accountant. You'd be very, very impressed with how deep they go into their numbers, not just the financial numbers, but also all of the operational ones, the sales, the marketing related KPIs. So that's something that's really important to consider. But big takeaway here is just remember this framework. And I'm just going to walk you through the different action items that you could take for each of those different time frames. So first things first, for the past, obviously go and analyze all of your past activity, financials, all of that's super important, but also look more into the operational type of KPIs. I've included a list here for you to pay attention to. These are the most common ones that we use. Now, some practices, depending on the software that they're using or how accessible some type of information is, it might vary, but on average, these are normally the most common ones that we've used that are also very easy to track. One that I didn't include in here is your patient retention rate, whether for new patients or for existing patients. That's a bit more challenging to track, but all of these other ones, they can be fairly simple to track, to monitor, and also to report. So take a screenshot. Obviously, you can watch this recording, but these are hands down the most common ones that I would recommend for you to pay close attention to, because they will have the biggest impact not only on your top line revenue, but also on profitability. It's also going to make sure that you're maximizing, each different department's capacity. So hands down, definitely a list I would pay attention to. Then the next step is to have a tracking process that's going to be able to track all the different, activity that's happening on a daily basis related to those KPIs, and also a process that can report that activity and also to validate the numbers that are being reported, just to make sure that everything's accurate and no mistakes that were made. So one system that we have been using with our consulting clients is a really simple form that's filled out, and one is created for each different major role in the company. And it's really as simple as at the end of every day, each team member gets an email notification to fill out this form, and all of this gets pushed into a spreadsheet where we're able to calculate all of those different KPIs. And that's actually something that we want to share with you at the end of this call is if you guys want access to that spreadsheet, we have it set up in a template that you can easily plug and play and start using it right away. Because again, I promise you, it might be boring to start tracking this, and it might seem like additional work, but this is hands down one thing that I would highly recommend for you to pay close attention to, because we all know the importance of being able to track results, the importance of setting targets, KPIs. It's all some common business stuff. But unfortunately, what's common doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be applied. And I just want to emphasize the importance of having a really good pulse on how well your company is performing. Otherwise, you're always just going to be, unfortunately, flying blind and being reactive to all the different, breakdowns, challenges that could come up, versus being able to catch them before they become a major issue. And this is where what we found the most proactive way to have a good pulse on that activity is collecting it on a daily basis. So that's what that process looks like. And step 3, we're talking about like the future time frame. And this is where you want to be able to use all of your past data and start setting targets. And these targets are also going to be used for a compensation plan, which I'll be giving you a really, really important framework to look into. And I know compensation is such a common question that comes up, and that's honestly one of the most common challenges that a lot of practices that we've worked with are facing. And I wish there was a super clear black and white answer on how to build a compensation plan. Unfortunately, there isn't. But what I do want to give you is a framework for you to consider when building out a compensation plan to make sure that you're aligning not only the individual goals, but also the department and company goals. So the framework for this is always consider individual targets, department targets, and company targets to build your compensation plan. Now, how much weight you decide to put on each of these, that is totally up to you. That's totally up to the culture in your business. That's totally up to your management style or leadership style. But ultimately, what I've seen is if you're just focusing on individual targets, obviously that could have for example, we've seen instances where, we had originally built a compensation plan based off of individual targets. And what happened is, let's just say somebody was coming in for body contouring. The provider wouldn't want to pass that patient on to the facial department because they were afraid of losing revenue, losing a potential patient, and not being able to hit those targets. So that's why you want to also incorporate department goals and targets in your KPIs, and also company-wide targets as well. And here's a quick framework on what that could look like in terms of the individual targets. Just using the KPIs that we have here. This is a simple way that you can break it down. And again, there's no right or wrong answer. I've seen practices that use a team-based compensation model that are getting amazing results. I've seen practices that try the team-based compensation model, not getting great results. So it's like a question of seeing what works the best for your practice, and also just making sure that you model off of, the type of culture that you want to build in the company. So again, I wanted to really just keep this sweet and short to give you guys some major takeaways and at least a framework that you can start thinking as you're planning for next year. And as I mentioned, we also do want to share that process or that spreadsheet that we've been using, which will be just, if you're interested in this, just message your account manager if you're a Diamond client. And if not, just send a message to any of the social media pages that you're interacting with, and we'll get this sent over to you. But essentially what this does, it just tracks all of the different KPIs for your team, for the company as a whole. And I'll even record a video that'll go over how to complete this. I don't want to bore you guys with some spreadsheets, but I promise there'll be a video tied to this. I'll show you how you can fill this out. But ultimately, just make sure you start tracking that. Again, whether it's you the one that's tracking it, you being the business owner, you being a team member, you doing it like for all of your providers, whatever needs to be done to start tracking that information, please, please, please start doing it. Again, this is like one of the biggest things that I saw really stand out compared to all the other practices that were below $2 million a year. and it's hands down the owner's ability to have quick and easy access to the information they need to make the right decisions for their practice. So we'll be more than happy to get that sent over to you. Now, if you do need help setting this up and also need help with some other pieces, not just related to the marketing side, but also regarding the back end of your business, we definitely do have something really, really exciting and something very special to share with you if you need help with analyzing all of your past data to set those KPIs and targets. You need a tracking, reporting, and validation system to monitor all those KPIs. That's going to be very hands-off. If you need help with building your comp plan or just growing revenue without having to spend more on marketing, just reach out to your account manager, reach out to our social media profiles. We built something called the Diamond Sales Operation Profitability System, which is really essentially pretty much focusing on our multi-million-dollar checklist, but not really going too deep into it. We're not taking any more clients like on our regular consulting side, but we have a 3-month program that pretty much goes over like some of the most important pieces that are part of this checklist. And again, all of that really just ties to more of your sales, your operations, and how you want to maximize profitability. So again, just reach out to your account manager if you need help with that. But if you just want access to the spreadsheet, let us know and we'll get that sent over to you. So hopefully this wasn't too boring. Hopefully you guys got some takeaways, and I'm going to stop the recording and I'll be more than happy